Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Welcome to Navigating Adult Autism. We are 7 moms with a lot of perspectives, a lot of opinions, and a lot of experience. And we are part 2 of relationships, dating, and marriage. And we're just going to jump right back in. So hopefully you listened to part 1. I'm Mary, and I'm here with Kara, Tara, and Dawn. I almost called you Cynthia, but you're Dawn. Cynthia, Heather, and Elizabeth are not here, and we're still with our guests, Catherine, Danielle, James, and Claire, and we're going to continue our conversation. And so where we left off, I'm just going to jump right in and ask about family relationships, specifically in-laws, how your spouse or partner was perceived by them, how the relationship is now, even sisters or brother-in-laws and whatnot. So I'm going to start with you, James.
Okay.
And how did that go with your parents? And how are you with her parents? Like, was there an expectation? Were they like question the diagnosis or like an uneasy feeling or?
So my mother was a teacher for a really long time, for 30 years. And now she went back to work as like parents as teachers, which is that kind of like younger group right before preschool. And so she, as an educator, I feel like she has a little bit more knowledge maybe than the average person with, children with autism and kind of screening for that.
But did she know her because you grew up with her a little bit in school? Did she already know of her?
Yeah, she already knew of her.
Okay.
And
did she think that
Kaylee,
maybe she might be on the spectrum?
Or
was it a surprise to her when she got the diagnosis?
I don't know if really a surprise. I remember telling my mom and her just kind of being like, okay, it didn't really change anything. It didn't really, I would just say overall, it didn't change a whole lot with her. And by the time that Kaylee was diagnosed, my father had already passed away. And so it's something that never had a conversation with him about. Mm-hmm. But, I think that, Kaylee doesn't always feel 100% comfortable with my family. It's kind of, different to her, just the way that we were raised up. There's a big generation difference. Her parents are just now turning 40. My mom is 64. My oldest brother is 38. So it's my oldest brother is almost the age of her parents. So there's a lot of differences in that aspect. I remember her telling her parents, or at least when she was first doing the research about it, and her dad being like, "Oh yeah, I was diagnosed with autism when I was young." And she was like, he had never told her. He was just it wasn't until she was talking to him about it, doing her own research. And she was like, oh my God, how could you just,
casually bring that up?
Yeah. And it's really interesting to see how it plays a part in her family. Her dad and her brothers both, they all have savant syndrome, if you've heard of that, which they are amazing musicians. Her dad collects guitars. He can play any song on guitar. Sometimes we'll just be going over there and he'll just be blasting music on his guitar. And it's definitely, it would be accurate to say that she's much more comfortable and can be much more be herself with her family. And so it's I would say, they did the best that they could with the resources that they had. And because of that, it is a safe place for her. But it's not.
She doesn't feel totally comfortable in your house with your family. It's just, do you have to talk to her about before you go still, or is it?
Yeah, and it's definitely changing, okay. And I've kind of already said, she's making so much progress with her social anxiety to where she's okay with seeing my family. more often. And the thing with my family is that it is a very large family. Yeah. My dad has 4 sisters, and my mom has 3 sisters and a brother. And so, and comes with tons and tons of cousins. So either side of the family, if we go to an event, there's going to be a lot of people there. And again, it's like all these people that she doesn't know, and having these expectations, like she's worried that they want her to like behave a certain way or say certain things as, my wife, and like, and while I don't always like agree, I'm like, I don't know if those people really have those expectations on you, like for you. Her anxiety does get in the way of that sometimes, where it's like she feels like pressure to behave a certain way.
She's perceiving that that's what they're thinking.
Yeah. And I won't lie, some of my family may be a tiny bit judgmental at times, but they mean the best. They want the best, for those people around them. It's just she doesn't always feel super welcome in some of those environments. But like I said, it's getting better. We've been going to more family events, and she's getting to know the family a little bit more. And it's definitely, I've seen her like come out of her shell quite a bit with them and get used to being around them.
Okay. Awesome. But your mom and your other family didn't have a talk with you like before marriage, like they just accepted her, and
I told
she was diagnosed after you guys were dating, right?
Yeah.
She was diagnosed much later,
but she knew of her though. She went to high school with them.
Yeah, and so like they knew each other,
and
she was still shy, and like of course I feel like at first anyone you're going to bring home to your parents is going to be a little bit nervous about meeting your parents.
So just typical stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And then it wasn't until, after she's diagnosed, and I told my mom, and like I said, she seemed just like kind of unfazed by it. It was a little bit surprising to me, but, and then when I told my mom that we were getting married, and she's always just kind of been like, okay, it's your life. Like, she's like, I'm here to support you for it, but she's like, you're the one that has to deal with any consequences of anything negative you chose to do. Yeah. Me and Kaylee chose to get married in Vegas, so we eloped and we flew out there, and we told our families beforehand. It wasn't like a complete surprise. Yeah, we told our parents, our immediate family, I should say, and that was probably one of our best decisions, because like we've gone to a couple of our friends' weddings since, and not just the cost, but oh my gosh, the social, just like so many people there. And we came home and we had a reception, had about like 35 people. Aww. And it was really nice. And I don't think either one of us would change anything about that.
Yeah. It was a good fit for you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have to be an intermediary at all? Like before you go to a family function or anything like that, like especially with the extended family, it sounds like you have 7 uncles and aunts.
Yeah.
Like, okay, because of her autism, do you feel like you're an educator a little bit?
A little bit. Like, it's like, I have to explain to them like these things, if she's choosing not to do certain things, like try certain food or just partake in a certain event, like it's not personal. It's not about like who is going to be there or what's going to be happening. I feel like just for her, it's like if you put a dish in front of her that she's unfamiliar with, she probably won't try it unless you can explain it in a way that is going to be like something that she's familiar with. And so sometimes I have to like explain to my mom that we're not coming down for dinner because she doesn't, she's like, is always interested in the things that she is cooking, and would feel bad to have to go out of my mom go out of her way to get something else or make something else. And we end up eating dinner at Kaylee's parents a lot because her mom raised her, she made these foods for her.
Yeah,
and she knows that this is someone that knows what she likes and knows what she doesn't like. And I have to give credit to where credit's due with Kaylee's mom for all 3 of her kids. I'm sure while her brothers haven't gone through the testing of getting diagnosed, all 3 are very clearly, on the spectrum in some regard, and they're all very, very picky eaters. And she does so much to work around that and make sure they're always getting fed. And so, while Kaylee's mom is used to that, Kaylee's used to her mom doing that for her, is she would just feel so inconveniencing with my mom if she asked her to do something like that.
It's like she's letting her down because she doesn't eat
Yeah.
It's almost like that. It's that perceived stress.
Yeah.
Even though it may not be that they're actually.
She's perceiving that his mom's going to be really upset.
Right.
And Kaylee,
Zion
she's
does
not
that
going
all
to
the
be.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing that I find really different about our family dynamics is Kaylee and her family are very, very upfront and honest. And we were talking about loyalty and honesty. I would trust Kaylee, till the end of days. Especially with like cheating or anything crazy like that. Like, I don't even have to second guess, never a second.
I
do
can
I
see
have
that.
to worry
Yeah.
about her talking to somebody else. And her family is very much that way too. They're very honest. And even if it seems kind of rude, they're going to advocate for themselves. And my mom and my family are a little bit more of like that people pleasing. Like, if someone asks you if you can do something, you're always going to say yes,
Yeah.
even if it's putting you at a bit of an inconvenience. While, some people think that's a positive thing, some think that's a negative thing. It's definitely not what Kaylee's used to. Kaylee, was like, because she knows my mom would do anything to accommodate for her, even if it is inconveniencing for her. And then she would worry about her holding like a grudge or like holding some resentment. Maybe she's like, I have to do all this extra stuff for her. And, that may not be true. And it could be just that anxiety and just, a little bit just unwarranted. But it could, in her mind, that could be what is happening.
Sure.
She doesn't
And
know.
I do love hearing, I was gonna say, I do love hearing
Mm-hmm.
that you're like trying to take some of that anxiety off of her too,
Yeah.
because you know that she's gonna feel that way. So you just heads up, mom. We're not gonna be eating. Just little things like that to just help
Right.
relieve some of that anxiety. That's just really nice to hear.
It is. It is. So nice.
So my question was, James, can you cook for your wife?
I do most of the cooking. And honestly, I know this is kind of, maybe different than other people. We do a lot of eating out, and it's because we for a while there, we had dishes that we got from Kaylee's mom, like recipes that we would make, and we made them until we were sick of them. And Kaylee's like, I do not want this baked chicken and pastaroni and Texas toast again, because we would eat that like every week, and so I did a lot of the cooking. But Kaylee's getting to the point, like it's really amazing to see how far where she's come, where in the worst of her burnout, she would hardly get out of bed until 2 p.m. and getting to the point now where she consistently is doing chores and she does cooking. And, while it may still be a little bit far and few between, it's not something I expect from her to, be cooking us meals every day. It's something that she just has to find what she enjoys and not making it such a task of like, it's like, I have to do this, because that's something that kind of pushes her away from it.
Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of different things. But she is doing a really good job of encouraging herself and finding enjoyment from making sure things are clean and getting things done and cooking things and having a schedule of chores through the week and having a schedule for what we're eating and stuff like that.
Good. Well, and we'll talk about food maybe after this a little bit, because food is a whole other issue on the autism spectrum. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Danielle, what about you? How was your family, his family, the marriage, the perception? How'd that go for you?
Yeah, we it went fairly well. He does have some family not in town, so didn't get to meet them for a little bit. My family is local, so tried to kind of introduce him within a little while. And then I would say,
did you say, hey, he has autism, you're going to meet my boyfriend? How did that go? Is that what you said? Or? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I was like, since he had told me pretty early on, and I'm pretty good friends with my parents. So it was actually funny. We were driving and I have CarPlay, and my mom saw like his name keep flashing because he was texting, and I'm like ignoring it, like, and mom's like, "Oh, is this a new person in your life?" Like, maybe. And so yeah, I think of that when I see his name flash on my CarPlay sometimes. So yeah, they kind of knew, like, hey, not wanting to get your hopes up, but I kind of like this new one. And I know one thing that my mom made a point of asking me was, she's like, I don't know everything about folks on the spectrum, so you're going to have to just kind of let us know, things that are going to be really irritating or what have you. But she really wanted to know what was the proper greeting. So she was like, we're a family to hug. And is that okay? Should I extend a handshake? Should I just do a little pat on the arm? She really wanted him to feel welcome and not, so he will, earlier we said affection, like he's good with hugs with me, not with most people.
Right.
So I did tell her that was probably a good thing to ask, and to just kind of keep it at a handshake, even though that might feel a little cold for our family, but that was probably more comfortable for Michael. So I would say with his family, I was just kind of coming into it new, because he has been on his own, has had his own household, and I had my own household, and combining those is always interesting.
Oh yeah.
But also like trying to figure out exactly what it was that he took care of, and then his father is very helpful in many ways in figuring out what his father was taking care of, because I'd ask, like, when is the vet appointment? And it'd be like, well, let me check. And I'm like, okay, what are you asking the vet? Or are you asking your father?
Yeah.
So just things like that to figure out like what needed to transition.
Right.
Just to kind of get an idea of like what the household is undertaking.
So how is your relationship with your father-in-law?
It is good. It is good.
What about the father-in-law giving the control up?
It happened at a time that was kind of perfect, I'll say, where he had some other things to be dealing with. And I think he felt a good sense of relief once he kind of got to know me a little bit, that I'm very level-headed, and obviously I love his son, so that helps as well. That he slowly was like, oh yeah, okay, let's get you on these accounts, and let's, like kind of let you step in and start taking over. And so it's kind of naturally happened. There's been, I'd say, just a few things that were a little rougher than otherwise. And part of it, and I actually turned to each other as we're somewhere and they're asking about an emergency contact. And I'm like, well, I've always put my mom and he's put his dad. And we were like, what are you comfortable with?
Right.
And for that particular thing, we kept each of our parents for that one. And now I think we're at a point where we would say each other. But it's a transition, and it feels weird a little bit.
Yeah, not your typical transition. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know, like, he stays in contact. It's not like they don't talk any less. I mean, maybe a little less, but like they have a very good relationship.
But just thinking while you're talking, though, Danielle, is like, I'm thinking when how good you're handling, how all of you guys are handling it. But I was just doing the little check in my own mind, like, wow, I'd have to turn a lot over to you. Like, there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot to follow up on.
Yeah,
So,
I was saying that in the break before we started recording. I was like, I'm definitely have a hard time if Zion found a significant other and just releasing the control of all the stuff that we've put in place and releasing it over to the partner.
Yeah. And then teaching it again.
Yeah.
To somebody else.
Yeah.
Not only just teaching it to your
And
son.
then I think I also will be a little hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be a little bit truthful, I mean, we've worked so hard and we've done so much over the years for 21 years. I mean,
and Zion's come so far.
Yeah, and he was nonverbal, and I mean, we've worked. I know that a lot of people. I don't even know how to say this correctly, but sometimes we get people calling or texting or emailing us saying, well, you don't know what we're talking about because we're not the person with autism. The moms aren't. And they're like, we don't have a voice a little bit. But as a mom of a child with autism, all the stuff that we have put on the back burner in our own lives so that our child can be an amazing individual. It's I'm gonna start crying because
as independent as possible.
As independent as possible. It's gonna be a little bit hard. I can tell. I know that I'm looking at Catherine right now, thinking of Cynthia. Just like how much. It goes from like when Zion meets that partner who is going to be his other person in life, his safe spot. I am then no longer the safe spot. Yeah. Yep. And I can see that hurt coming, but I don't want it to be. I want to be able to release the reins and say, go live your amazing life. Go have an amazing, not away from me because I still want you near me. But I would love to release the reins to someone who doesn't have that huge history and that's probably what it is like, we do have that huge history and we know we think we know the limitations, but it'd be awesome to see him fly.
Yeah. So Catherine,
figuring out how to get to that, I think is.
And now, Catherine, having your own child, you know what we mean. I mean, on a smaller scale, but think about that. I mean, that's how we are, bonded like that. I mean, And when Danielle was saying, and change the accounts over, I'm like, oh my God. This would be quite a chore. He found somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot to do.
And it's also interesting. I've not been married before. But my husband is not terribly comfortable making phone calls. You give him an online form. Correct. He can make reservations for dinner, no problem. But those phone calls, figuring out that, okay, with a particular doctor or a bank, like, what do I need to do to authorize? Of course, if he's, in agreement, what sort of paperwork do we need to do that I can act on his behalf and get it set up where you guys as parents might have also done that, but I feel like as a parent, there might be already a little bit of a green light.
Well, when they turned 18, they became their own. Like, I'm not Zion's guardian, so he became his own person. And that was even hard because I was no longer called for doctor's visits, anything. And so I had to get all the paperwork pushed over. Zion had to sign everything that I could be contacted. So it's very similar.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah. Cause I wasn't quite sure. And then sometimes it's almost too easy where I think neurotypical spouses do this for their partner too.
True. Yeah.
They didn't ask for much. So
and I think even in the case with Alex where we're both autistic, but I tend to be more of the language and communication abled person in our relationship, I still do the same things. Like today I was calling a bunch of places looking so that we could find a new primary care doctor, you know? So, but I think it's really cool, like how we're able to complement one another in that way. Like he does the driving, he manages the finances, I do the talking on the phone and
That's good though.
Yeah.
And a lot of marriages, even neurotypical, are like that. You kind of have your
you have
roles.
your niche and your roles, but it's cool to see how you're able to like I know we were talking about earlier about giving up that, like the mom's like giving up that kind of role. And so I also feel that as well, like with his parents as well, especially because they're not in this country. So we had to learn a lot of things on our own and grow up
absolutely
a lot quicker. So,
and then Catherine, how was it for you?
So it was funny. First I'm going to go on with my parents and him meeting my parents. So, and then I'll get into me meeting my, future mother and father-in-law. So, my parents, actually, we met a lot quicker because I think Eric was really nervous to introduce me to his parents. He was really nervous about it. And so I wasn't nervous about it because I'm very open with my parents anyway. They knew I was dating someone. He met them like a month in, right? I think we started dating in like September of 21, and then we're like the end of September. No, I'm wrong. It was October. Then we were official, like made it like official, right? By like November.
Facebook official.
Yes, all of that. We weren't seeing anybody else. Like, it was like that. Like, are you seeing anybody else? Are you? No. Okay. We're not. Okay. So so it's us. And so, he met them on Thanksgiving, the first time. And so we had been like just a couple, only a short while. My dad is a jokester. He likes to joke all the time. When I was like, I already knew that I was nervous because my dad is going to say something that is going to scare this
humor
guy
doesn't
away.
always go well with people with autism. Yeah.
No. And so I was like, oh my goodness. And we hadn't had that conversation of him being on the spectrum yet, but just in general, like some people just don't get my dad's humor.
Okay.
And so I could say that.
So you have to explain your dad a lot.
I do. I'm like, okay, my dad is harmless. I promise. Like he's just kidding. And so we get there and my dad immediately like just starts asking him when we're getting married. And I'm like, Dad, stop it. And he's kidding. Like he's completely kidding.
But Eric probably didn't think he was kidding.
Yeah. And Eric is like,
tomorrow.
And so but they really loved him right away. And my dad likes to pick on people, but in a funny, like nice way, but he can go overboard. Right. And Eric has gotten so used to him now. Like he's like, yep, I know Kevin. Yep. Mm-hmm. And he'll just kind of, just let it roll off of him. But, it's funny because he's able to do that with my dad, and my dad knows that he's like ignoring him or something, but neither one is offended by each other. Good. So it works out really well. And then my mom and Eric just clicked right away. They were buds like right away. Like he was, sometimes like my mom will text him sometimes and I'm like, she's not texting me. Like, why is she texting you? But no, they really clicked right away too. But my dad did seriously put on Facebook at one point in a comment as a joke. He said, did you go to Jared's yet? We had been dating a couple months. And I'm like, Dad, please stop. You're going to scare this guy away. Like, the whole, did you go to Jared's jeweler? Yeah, the jeweler. But so anyway, but with my parents, I think it went really well. And we play like card games with them like every weekend. We go over to their house usually Friday or Saturday and we play Rook. It's our favorite game. And yes. So we play Rook and my dad and I are partners and my mom and Eric are partners, and which it leads to a lot of they just get into it like together. Like they will just like badmouth each other and just go back and forth, and it's really great. But we just do that, you know, with them there. But so me meeting Eric's parents, Kevin and Cynthia, which is funny, our dads have the same name, so it worked out well that way. Right. But so whenever I met them, I found out later on that Cynthia was actually telling Eric, "Are you doing this? Are you doing this for her? Are you opening doors for her? Are you doing that?" Like she would like list out things because she was worried that like, you know, I wouldn't stay.
I'd be doing the same thing probably.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. She was like listening. Are you doing all these things? Which made him really aggravated. I found this out actually from his dad, because he would like be like, "Cynthia, he's got this. They're okay. They've been dating for months. Like they're okay now. Like they're fine." But it was funny. But so when I finally met them, I think we went to dinner. I think we were out in public, our first meeting. And he did that on purpose because me and his dad are complete like polar opposites when it comes to politics. So he didn't want so he didn't want like his dad to start a political conversation. So he apparently had a really harsh conversation with his dad before I met him and was like, "Don't do it, Dad, don't do it." And it's funny because his dad and me are like basically the same person except for when it comes to politics. Like we're everything else. Like we bonded on cheese. He's from up north, so we bonded on cheese. Yeah, well, and he actually doesn't know Rook though, which is sad. Like Kevin doesn't. We need to train him. But
So have you talked about politics since you've been married? Just curious.
We have, and not really with Kevin. He kept to the same rule, and me and him just have kept to it. And it's
sometimes that's best.
Yeah, it's just best.
Yeah,
But, you know, especially right now.
When is it good to bring up
times.
politics?
Right.
Yeah. But I will say though, Cynthia and I have had some great conversations around it, and Eric gets terrified whenever we have some of those conversations because he's like, "You guys are going to hate each other or whatever." But we've actually had really good conversations about just different beliefs in general.
Yeah.
But I think so. The whole, you know, I think they
accepted you right off the bat.
I think they did. I think they accepted me right off the bat. And I'm very social anyway, and so it wasn't too difficult for me to meet them and stuff. But I will say when we started getting more serious, I did start to notice little things that I was like, "Wait, why are you calling your mom for that?" And they'd be things that I wouldn't even think of because I had been living by myself since I was 18. Yes, I was in a dorm, but I was
self-sufficient.
I was, since I was about 18. And so I'd be like, "Wait, what do you mean? Like you don't know this, or, you have to call your mom for that or something." And I was slowly figuring out little things that, it would just be simple things. Like she would have a key to his apartment and come over and clean it sometimes. And I was like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, why?"
That's Cynthia.
Yeah. Well, and that's Cynthia in general, because you guys know, she's
a helper. She's there.
And she literally cleans like houses for a living anyway.
Yeah.
So, she's also a pet sitter.
Yes.
And she'll clean.
And house
she's
sitter.
the best house sitter because she cleans your house while she's house sitting.
Yep.
Yes. Well, so
she also works at an insurance company.
Yeah, exactly.
She has many jobs.
So it was just all these like little things that I started noticing. But one thing, actually, this was our first thing that actually Cynthia and I kind of butt heads about. It was our first thing. It was, we'd not been dating for a full year yet, but we were getting close. And so this was summer. Eric's family on his mom's side, they have a lake house they all share. Okay, so we are all excited. My parents are coming, his parents are coming, and we're all just going to get together for a day at the lake house. Well, super excited for swimming. And Eric says, "Oh yeah, they have a dock." And then he says, "Oh, you have to wear a life jacket." I was like, "What are you talking about? I have to wear a life jacket?" No. And he says, "No, it's the rule of the lake house. You have to wear a life jacket." And I said, "What are you talking about, rule of the lake house? I am 26 years old. I'm not wearing a life jacket if I don't want to." And I was like, "What?" And then he says, "No, it's actually a rule. You have to do it at the lake house." I was like, "Well, I'm going to guarantee you my dad is not going to do it. Like my mom will do it to be nice, but my dad is not going to do it." But so he finally gets into that this was his mom's rule because he had seizures
I was
growing up.
just going to say that, but I didn't want to disclose that.
Yes. So he had seizures growing up.
Yeah.
And whenever he was in high school, it was pretty frequent.
Yeah.
So
and
once
the
in the
reason
water.
why, yes, and the reason why the life jacket is he was at camp. I remember getting the phone call from Cynthia. And she had left to come back home and he had a seizure and she hadn't been gone but maybe 30, 45 minutes from the camp. And he was like out of it. They had to pull him
In the water.
had to
Face
pull
down.
him out of the water. He was under, they weren't sure how long, and then pulled him out. And it was very terrifying and dramatic for her.
Yeah.
I remember talking to her on her way back to the camp when they had just called and said that he had a seizure. It was very dramatic. So that's why.
Well, and see, and I didn't have that history.
You didn't have the
knew-
context.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
knew that I knew that he had seizures, right? But that he told me he hadn't had one in years, right? I knew that part. But we were just, I was like, okay, but you haven't had one in a long time. Like, shouldn't that be your choice? At this point, he says, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is. And so it was funny because he's like, no, don't call my mom. Don't call my mom. Just wear a life jacket. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't want to fight with her. And I was like, well, I'll have the conversation. You know that I don't fight about stuff. Like, I just want to talk to her about it. And so I talked to her and she went into a little bit of like her worries and stuff. And by the end of the conversation, we were just like, she really just was like, you're right. And, I get that I'm worried but I'm going to be worried about other things too, and I do need to let him make that choice. And that's not me. And so we have that really, I think every time we've came up against something, if we have a conversation, we get through it really easy. Like
Awesome.
we have, it may be a long conversation and it may be like back and forth of, well, why do you think that? And it's part of the social worker in me though, but like, I will ask all these questions and I'm like, okay, well, what's actually going on? Like, why are you really
you're a
afraid
good
of this?
communicator.
So so we really have those conversations. So we found out from that conversation that sometimes when we have those difficult conversations where Cynthia has to let go, I have those because if Eric has those, they don't get anything done. And then it turns into an argument.
Yeah.
And so if I'm there and I talk about it with her, just even first, and then he can talk about it with her, it's kind of this like prefacing, and allowing everyone to be like, okay, here's the problem and let me mediate. And this is why I'm a facilitator at work now. But let me mediate for everyone.
Yeah.
But so that was our big first one. And then actually, our big second one was meds and his medications.
Oh, medications, right?
Oh, that was a rough one because once we bought a house together, right? And we moved in together. And then I found out that he would get his medicine in like a tray every week and he didn't have any of the bottles. I was like, why don't you have your own pill bottles?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, this is just what we've always done and it works. She gives me it. And I was like, oh, okay, but you really need to have those because coming from the legal aspect of it, I was like, you need to physically have those. If someone comes in and it's like, these pills, do you even know what each of these are? And he knew what he was on, but he didn't know what each of the pills looked like, what they were. And so
that's a problem.
Yeah. And so we were like, okay, it's like, we have to rectify this. And he was like, yeah, they're not now. Please do not. And I can't remember what was going on at the time. I think we might have been wedding planning. And he actually said, can you wait until after the wedding? Just wait until after the wedding. We will deal with it then. I was like, okay. But after the wedding, we are having a conversation because that's something, that's something with my foster kids that I advocate for really big is their medications and really knowing their own medications and being able to advocate for themselves about what they're on. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
That's a good point, actually.
And
Man, I wish I could give over Zion's medication to somebody because it's really hard for him to be interested at all in his medication.
Yeah. Well, and he wasn't. And it was like,
Well, he didn't have to be.
yeah, exactly.
Well, he was so used to her doing it.
He
I mean,
was.
his whole life.
It was
So
a routine.
How did
He
that
picked it up on Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every Sunday he picked it up. Or
Yep.
she dropped it off,
Yep.
But-
So how did that conversation go with her? How'd you approach her on it?
So it was a phone call and I was like, all right, we got to talk through this. And I'm also, I mean, so just a little background, whenever we got married, I was like in my second trimester, I believe. We actually got engaged, and then almost immediately after found out we were pregnant, and we already scheduled our wedding. And I was like, I'm not changing the date. So I just got like a dress that was flowy. Right. And
Beautiful dress, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And so I was pregnant too. And so also he's like, don't get yourself all like frustrated. I was like, I don't deal with stuff that way. But so he does. And so he thinks I'm going to do it. But so we had this phone call and we talked about the fact that we're like, okay, here is the deal. This is an issue. And here is why it's an issue. And I kind of laid out stuff. She was quiet on the phone. And then she started being like, okay, I get that, but I'm so afraid he's going to miss one. I was like, okay, well, it's fine that he uses the trays. That's fine. But I think he needs to at least know what's in them, and the pill bottles need to be here. Like, we can fill the trays together at the beginning of the week. And so that's what we do now. We will both
took ownership,
sit down, and he doesn't feel comfortable doing it by himself, and that's fine. And so we'll both sit down and do it together.
Yeah. And I could see, and it's probably the seizure medication that she's most worried about.
It is. Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
It's because she's seen him have multiple seizures, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
Mother's worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think once she realized that, it's like, okay, we're going to sit down together and do that and make sure everything is in those pill boxes, and make sure he's ready for the week.
Yeah.
And learning that you're responsible and that she really loves you and cares for you.
Exactly.
Knows that, okay, Catherine's responsible.
Well, and really, it really just took that one conversation. And then she brought the meds over, brought them over that, I think like a day or two later, and was like, here they are. And I did my whole caseworker thing, and I was like, hey, this is what you're on. We're going to read each of them and be like, okay, because I'm so used to that I'm like, people have to know their meds. They have to know what they're on. They have to be able to advocate for themselves if something's not working or if it's not having the right effect,
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I'm kind of long-winded, but I just had a lot of we did have some of that. And we'll now we have the whole thing with our daughter that, and it's funny because she knows that she would sometimes do this, where she would step in. And this is more like a grandparent thing than anything, to be like, oh, I can do this for you or whatever it is. And it's like, Cynthia, we got it. We got it. It's okay.
Yeah, that is a grandparent-in-law thing.
It's for sure. But, and she's...
Or is it a mother-in-law thing? Because do you take the same advice from your mother compared to your mother-in-law? Because I know I would much take it from my mother than my mother-in-law.
So my mom is very hands off unless you ask her.
Okay.
That's just how she really is. She's very much, I taught you, go. If you call me and ask, okay. But Cynthia's approach is very
totally opposite.
I want to make sure. It's true. She's like, I want to make sure.
I've been friends with Cynthia for a long time.
Well, she's more acts of service. Her very much. Her expressive
you don't need
language.
Something. She's still there.
Oh my goodness.
She's there to help.
Yeah, and I've told her too. I'm like, I don't want you to struggle because you're trying to help us too. Like, if you need something, please let me know, because I'm also kind of an acts of service kind of person too. So we'll sometimes butt heads because of that, because we both want to do the service.
Yeah. But she is willing to sort of cut off her own hand to help somebody else.
She is, and it's I can't even describe like how many times she's just been a lifesaver too, to where, being a new parent and being like, our babysitter fell through, like she's there.
Yeah.
Whereas, other people I know, sometimes it's like, what am I going to do? I guess I'm going to have to miss work. She's like, no, I'll miss work for you. That's fine.
Yeah. She's so loving.
She was just drop everything for you. And so I think the transition was hard for her, but I also think she
it's still coming along.
A little, for sure. But I think she's been able to relax a lot more now that and really, I think, enjoy being a grandma too.
Yes, she is.
She's really enjoying it now.
She is.
And she's amazing with her.
We hear about it every time.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
We did this and this.
Oh yeah, and they have Grandma Wednesday together. They love their Grandma Wednesdays, but so and it's just. It's still obviously a work in progress sometimes, but I think it is with any relationship really. But she has really let go a lot. And I've also on my part, I have a hard time sometimes accepting help and being okay with people helping me. And so that's been something I've had to learn too, being okay with people helping me. And that's okay, because Eric will actually get after me sometimes and say, why can't she do that? And I'll be like, I'm being petty. You know, and I'm like, you're right. That's not actually a problem. And if I need help, you know, I should ask for it or accept it, you know.
Right.
But anyway.
Do any of other guests have children? Danielle, do you have children yet, or no? Or
We do not. We have a fur baby.
no one else has children in the panel.
Do you want kids?
Yeah.
I mean,
Me and Kaylee definitely plan on having kids. You know, we just want to figure out a couple things with like living and stuff, because you know, we do just live in an apartment right now, and we'd rather have you know, a little bit of a bigger space to have a kid.
Yeah, you're just starting out. That's how it's how it goes.
how about you, Claire?
So we've talked about having kids, but we're kind of going back and forth between that space where we would have one or we would have none.
Yeah.
And also with us both being like dual nationals of the US and UK, we talked about like, oh, if we ever had kids, we definitely would want to move back to the UK, just because not only for their citizenship, but also for like better maternal health and paternity and maternity leave.
Yeah.
But it's also something that we think about, like if we had a child, that the probability of them having autism would be probably very high. And we've also talked about like, what would their support needs look like?
Yeah.
Would they be like a level 2, level 3? And how would we navigate that as a family while also trying to manage our own selves as well?
Right. That's a lot to think about.
So you saying that, and I hate to jump back in, but you made a great point that Eric was panicked about that. Whenever we found out we were pregnant, he was just really scared that, you know, like, what if they have autism? And I was like, why are you scared of that? And, you know, and he was telling me all these fears, and I was like, you're amazing. Like, I wouldn't care. And he was really for a long time stuck on that. So I get what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also just trying to like manage a child when you're also trying to manage your own self as well. But honestly, like it's great to hear that you've had such a like a positive experience. And I honestly think like we'll make great parents if we do choose to do that. Like, and I think also it better helps you figure out like, oh, what are those signs that you need to be looking out for so that you can help your kid get the supports that they need.
Right.
Especially with my experience being diagnosed later in life and all of my siblings having that same experience. And we wonder like, oh, like if we had looked out for certain signs, would anything have been different, you know?
Yeah.
It probably would also depend on if the person, you or your partner, has those sensory needs that may be accentuated with children. I'm speaking from Zion's perspective. He absolutely does not want children no matter what, because he cannot handle children.
Yeah, I would definitely say that my partner is in the same boat. Like, and like, even though I have worked in daycares before and my office is located in a daycare, I hear kids screaming and I'm like, I never want kids. I never want kids.
You know what's crazy about that though? Eric, like this guy was born to be a dad. Like, I'm serious. Like I wasn't really nervous about it because like, you know, it'll be what it's going to be. But he just, a lot of the things that he has issues with other people, like if it's like too loud or whatever, he does not have that issue with her. And it's completely different. Like even with other kids versus her, even though he's great with other kids, like it was this total, the moment she was born, just switch into this. And I know Cynthia had a lot of anxiety about him being a dad too, and becoming a dad, but it was just completely, and I will see him sometimes getting like this, like kind of sensory like overload sort of thing with her, but he is just able to completely put it aside whenever he's with her.
Neat.
Like, and it's just so neat to see.
Yeah, it
him.
is. The other question I had.
Wait, did we ask Danielle if they're?
Oh, sorry,
I
Danielle.
mean, this could be completely a private question. You don't have to answer it. Danielle, did you?
Yeah.
Or do you plan to have children?
You don't need to answer it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I'd say we're between the 0 and 1 choice as well.
Fur babies
That's
are
a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
So I being later in life, finding each other, I always thought I would have children. But as our relationship has developed, I feel more complete. And I know my mother doesn't understand this, but I'm like, I feel more complete with him and our fur baby than I ever thought I could.
Oh,
Wow.
And the one thing that I've asked of him is that we stay open possibly to adoption and foster.
Yeah.
Because we also have very similar thoughts to what Claire had mentioned with he's just being realistic that it's the hereditary and then his ability to cope with all the situations that a child might bring. It's scary, and I'm sure parenting is scary for anyone, or most. That's why I think we're also in that 0 to 1, because sometimes we think about it and think like, I know in my heart he would be a good dad, and part of it is I see how much he takes care of our fur baby. And I mean, so responsible, checking her over. Hey, she's doing this. Hey, she's doing that. And very much puts her needs above ours sometimes. And so, I mean, that alone tells me that it very well could work. But it's an open topic. And right now he's on the road a lot, and that has also factored in.
sure.
So I am a little afraid of my own strength as a potential single parent quite a bit of the time. And so that kind of factors in too. So
It can be stressful.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I was just going to say maybe a shout out to the CDC to see if they could actually come. I mean, we know there's a genetic component to autism, but what part is genetics? What part is environmental? And what environmental factors are involved? And I mean, if they could solve what's the causes of autism, I think that would benefit everybody at this table.
Yeah. Or give us some good stats on the probability. I know that when we had our third child, we waited a long time to decide if we wanted a third child because we were worried. I mean, I think even our pediatrician said there was, and this may be totally false, Dr. Fusco can correct it later, but I thought it was like
come on, Dr. Fusco. We'd like to have you
I just
on
saw her at the Black Tie Affair, but I think it was maybe a 1 in 4 chance that our next child, and that may be totally crazy but that's what I remember. It was 17 years ago. Give me some grace. So, but I was worried. So we waited 4.5 years to have our third child.
Well, that's why a lot of us have one child. We were all worried.
Yeah, we were all worried.
Yeah,
I was told, well, Kelsey was born premature. Her first diagnosis, of course, was CP and then later PDD and OS. So we had a higher risk of having another premature baby, which means more brain, another baby with brain damage. Can I deal with it? Yeah. And that's why, again, a lot of us decided to only have one child.
Yeah. And that's why I waited 4 years. I realized, okay, even if I had another child with autism, Zion is so precious to me. I could do this again. It took me 4 years to decide that. But just like what Catherine was saying, it was like, Zion is such a gift to me. I could still do this again if this third child had autism.
Yeah. Well, and I told Eric, I was like, even if we had a child, that was on the spectrum, how incredible of an advocate you would be for them.
Yeah.
Like, and
That's a good point.
That's a great point.
yeah. Who better? I'm sorry, but who better is what
And
kinda
as a
I told him.
para, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was like, you got all the tools. And then, I mean, honestly, like even without my background, he's got all the tools. Like, I'm going to fight tooth and nail on all the legal stuff about it from doing, children's division. But I'm like, you got all the tools, to handle that. And the idea of handling it too, I was like, I said, I told him, I was like, any baby that we would have would be just this gift anyway. And it wouldn't matter.
And looking at my oldest and my youngest, and Zion's in the middle, those two kids are the best advocates for their brother. Yeah. They are also the most empathetic. They are also the ones with the most grace for him. They are the most amazing friends to him.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it happened the way it happened in our lives, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not always that way.
Yeah.
You need another one, Catherine.
I'm not saying that. I'm not pressuring. I'm not saying that at all. You guys don't. I'm saying in my life, it worked out for us.
We were talking about how many kids you want. I would want 1 billion, but it's fine. We've talked that we want to have a couple probably biologically, and then we want to adopt a few. Is kind of where we're leaning, and we're really actually leaning towards adopting maybe a teenager on the spectrum.
Oh,
That's kind of where we are. We really both connect really well with teenage boys on the spectrum. So we've talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
So 13, 14.
I'm a CASA advocate, and I volunteer at CASA, and I have that same thing where I just feel for the teenagers in foster care too.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and actually you guys were talking about having more than one, child and stuff. And I don't know and I'm not going to get too much into Cynthia and Kevin's journey of having kids and stuff, but for them, they did want more and they couldn't have more. And so they actually dabbled in the idea of fostering for a bit. And so Eric's all on board with the whole fostering thing because he wanted them to, and he wanted siblings. And so me and him both, I wanted siblings close to my age because I have a lot of my siblings are much, much older than me. The closest one is 8 years older than me. And they go all the way up to, I think I'm 27. Yes, I'm 27. They go all the way up to 40, my siblings do. So I always wanted siblings. And so we've talked a lot about the whole adoption thing. And Danielle, if you want to, hit me up after this, I can help you out with that part.
Well, and
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of makes sense. I'm talking about Caleb and Hannah being Zion's best friends, but Saffron has the same situation where her sisters are her. Oh,
yeah. They have definitely been.
Let me write it. Sorry. Space.
We're going to edit that, Danielle.
Yeah, we're going to edit
we're stopping for.
And did you know that
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we're going to cut this.
I was going to ask Danielle.
Okay. And Claire has had the same situation where her sisters are her friend group as well. So do you want to talk about that at all? Your friends?
Yeah. And actually it's really funny because my partner and my sisters and I were kind of our own little friend group, but he's basically been accepted as part of our friend group. We go to a lot of events together, share lots of similar interests. They'll come over for sleepovers and we'll just have a good time together. And I think that surprisingly, even though I've struggled with traditional social relationships and friendships, and so has my partner as well, that family bond has definitely been stronger, especially because we share so many of those interests. It's almost like they've accepted him as a brother in a way. So
I love that. Well, to wrap it up, the last question I had, and you just kind of talked on it, Claire. What autism aspects of the relationship bother you the most, and which do you enjoy the most? And just quirkiness, what comes to the top of your head, an autism aspect. We all even neurotypical relationships, there's things that bother us. But as on the
You looked at me when you were saying that, Miss Mary.
we'll talk about
The
our husbands.
relationship between friends, between these
No, I
two
meant
friends.
husbands.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
No, that's because it's about dating and marriage. Like,
Yes. Yes.
what comes to your mind with the part of the autism relationship that bothers you the most, and which do you?
I think Danielle was about to talk. So Danielle, you want to be first?
I was just gonna say I can go. I would say, and my husband knows this because we're trying to veer away from it a little bit. Just literally being living in the same place. My husband likes to use things down to about like if it's a medicine down to like an inch in the bottle, or paper towel roll to about an inch, and then gets the next one. And so I find myself with tons of like almost finished bottles and things that I'm like, where is this learned behavior here? Because at my house, like if you didn't finish the last ketchup and you got a new one out, like you were literally in trouble,
Right.
because you got to finish that bottle.
Yep.
And the funny thing though is I've been around his family a little bit, and I'm seeing a few of them have the same behavior.
Yeah.
So I think maybe not to that extent. But I do think there is a little bit of a psychological part there of kind of always wanting to have whatever the item is. So it's not just learned, but I'd say that was the first thing. Like I'd look around and go, oh my goodness, why do we have all these things? And then I'd say I wouldn't say it's something I'm navigating through, and we're having to trust each other, is the attachment to items. Especially having two full households and consolidating into one. There's just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we both have, and recognizing when something can be let go of because it doesn't hold the memory value of something else. So sometimes that gets a little bit frustrating.
So he tends to
I'd
hold on
say-
to a lot more, you think, of just stuff?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. More like an autism characteristic, just because there is an autism characteristic of collector. Like they like to collect things and have little
Yes.
piles of stuff. That is one aspect of, okay.
And to him, it's he's described it as a memory association.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
And
from my own son.
so something that might seem like trash, for instance, a Snapple carton that I thought that was empty, that surely seemed like trash, and I put it in the recycle, and he let me know that he had rescued it, and that was something that he needed to keep. So
That sounds classic, actually.
That sounds like Zion.
Mhm, that's a classic.
We have lots of little
Yeah.
new Pepsi Coke can, the new
mementos.
the new Pepsi can, the old Pepsi can, all those
Well, like
different
Danielle
things.
was saying, I found acorns one time in a jar. Had no idea he collected acorns. And like you said, Danielle, it sparked a memory that he had to keep
Yep.
from way
Yeah.
back when. I'm like, oh, my land. Okay. And I pretended like I was keeping them, which I did for a while, but they weren't. But
See that oak tree in the front yard?
exactly.
I planted that in your memory.
yeah.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
funny.
So there's little things, but then he has a lovely sense of humor that I just have to laugh at, because I kind of made a point of letting him know that there were numerous T-shirts of the same exact variety. And I said, maybe we only keep 2 so that we can, you have it, but you don't just have this quantity.
Yeah.
And the response back was like, no, they must be kept. And I was like, okay, but like you don't wear them. So I had to chuckle because shortly thereafter, all of my laundry ended up being filled up with those certain t-shirts. So
He's going to prove that he wears them.
That's funny.
exactly.
That is funny.
I was
great.
like, okay, you heard me.
Yeah.
You heard me. And
At
so
least
I
they're
had
being
to laugh.
used. Yeah, at least they're being used.
Absolutely. So,
That's
I
great.
think it's having a little bit of fun, and just trying to find, what works.
Right.
As far as what's great, I mean, there's so many things.
What's the first
I
that comes
love-
to your head? Pops in your head.
Well, we were talking earlier about kind of the responsibilities that each of you takes because your strengths. And we were going to be traveling somewhere, and our hotel got canceled. It was international travel, and our hotel got canceled like 2 days before. And I was kind of freaking out. I was like,
I would too.
this is kind of a big deal. And he was able to navigate that. And he just, okay, I've dealt with it. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I think it's just kind of remembering that you each bring strengths to the table.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, there's sometimes it feels like there's a lot on my shoulders, but then if I evaluate it and kind of think about, okay, well, what can I give up and what is he willing to take and what are his strengths, then it kind of starts to even itself out. So,
Right. That's a good way to look at it. And it's true. Yeah. What about you, James?
That's what comes to
I'm
mind.
sorry, Danielle. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Cut you off at the end. I was just moving on to James.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
So I would probably say that my favorite and least favorite are some of Kaylee's hyperfixations. I love hearing Kaylee learn about new stuff and her info dumping, I'll get home from work and she's been researching something all day, watching YouTube videos about it and just telling me, I'm like, I've never heard of this thing before, and just telling me. But in that same vein, there are things that she will get the supplies for. She's like, kind of recently, she's like, I'm going to make bread. I'm going to make some bread from scratch. She's like, I've done the research. I've read about it. I know what I need. This is all the stuff I need. We went and bought that stuff. That stuff is still in our pantry. Not open.
I thought you were going to say she was making sourdough like I do.
And that would be amazing. And
She should come over.
And I love her to death. But yeah, there are there are just a few things where she's like, this is what I'm going to do now. And she's like, I've got it all figured out. This is what I need. I'm like, okay, you sound very confident. And then I get all the stuff and the stuff is there. And it just doesn't quite happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I think something that can be frustrating for me is nothing that she does doesn't make sense to her. And while everything she does, she's very clearly of course I did it because this way, because that's what makes sense. And it's it can be kind of difficult to I was like, why, I could be like, why haven't you made bread yet? And she'd be like, well, our kitchen is too small. And you're the space, I don't have the space for it. It's there's always a reason. And that can be kind of frustrating, I'm just kind of admit that, I don't want to do it anymore. I lost interest for it, and sometimes that can come back to me and her questioning me doing stuff. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I just wasn't thinking. And she's like, that doesn't make any sense. What do you mean you weren't thinking about it? And I was like, sometimes I'm just, kind of spacey and I forget to do something or and that just does not make sense to her at all. And to her brain. And so I would say that's the main reason for any kind of argument or any kind of conflict is just that difference, in the way we think. And, it just doesn't make sense to her that I could not think about something for a second.
Yeah. There has to be an answer. There has to be the reason. Yeah.
And I'm like, I know you're very logical. You have things thought out. I'm not always that way. I need a little bit of grace sometimes.
I feel like if you say, well, I don't know, they're like, what do you mean you don't know?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
I mean, that my son does that to me this week. What do you mean you don't know? How do you not know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no nonchalant
Especially if it's like
acceptance.
Very
something,
black and white, concrete.
Yeah. Yeah.
especially if it's something I say, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
and like, she's like, that was like a weird thing to say. And like, why did you say it? I'm like, you know, it was weird. I don't know why I said it. And she's just like, but why did you say it? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I just didn't think about it beforehand. I had a moment.
Do you feel like that you have to apologize a lot more?
Yeah. And I definitely feel
You
like,
just take it upon yourself.
and honestly, yeah. And
You're
like,
just like, okay.
and after a few times of arguing and never getting anywhere with it, and I'm like, you know, I'm like, there are times where I'm like, I want to stand up for I feel like
This is important.
sometimes I feel like maybe not that I get like walked on, but just like sometimes I'm like, I feel like I take the fall for some things a little bit more than she does. But you know, honestly, when she explains herself, I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. That was kind of my fault. Yeah. Like,
Oh, my poor husband.
Yeah.
I feel for my husband, and I'm not even on the spectrum, but he takes, I mean, just in marriage in general, I sort of blame him for a lot of stuff that he is not responsible for.
it's just easier to take it, you know, and and when she truly is responsible for stuff, I mean, she does apologize and she does mean it, but she does things very intentionally, and
Yes.
Yeah.
she
It's like,
doesn't
but I am right.
exactly, you know, she doesn't make a lot of mistakes, really. You know, she
I'm looking at you, Claire. Does that resonate with you at all? How are
she
you
does a
feeling
lot,
about this
yeah.
conversation?
Yeah, I feel like not like not only of the not being able to take any mistake.
But do you feel like there always has to be a reason? Like, are you like that?
I feel like I'm always gonna like question a certain way things are done. Like why is this sitting over here when I wanted it to be over there? Why did you do this in this way at this time? And just like it feels like there does have to be that reason almost. But I also do resonate with Jay, like kind of taking the fall. Like I personally in our relationship,
Right.
You take the fall?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it feels like, and this may just be like a husband and wife thing, but she'll like do something that I've done before, and she like got onto me, and I'm like, oh, look what happened, look what you did, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Like, well, that's what happened when I did it.
Yeah.
You know,
Now it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's not a big
my
deal.
God.
You know?
Oh, that's so true in marriage in general.
Exactly.
I do that
That's
all
what-
the time to
yeah.
Jason, poor guy. I just need to tell Jason I love him.
But Claire, go ahead.
So going back to your question. So I feel like one of the things also with us both being on the spectrum is that interrupting each other like all the time. We constantly talk over each other, and it's like I don't know, it's just a bad habit to break, I feel like. But it's always like I find myself getting frustrated with my partner because I'm like, I want to speak now. Let me speak, you know? And I know like even in neurotypical relationships, that's the thing, but also because we don't understand like the natural cues all the time of like when we're supposed to speak, we start kind of interrupting each other, and it becomes like this mumbo jumbo of, oh my gosh, it's a good thing if we can each get a word in, honestly. But also going back to what James said about hyperfixations, like I have hyperfixations of my own, especially, and Alex does too. But for some reason, his hyperfixations always result in him spending large amounts of money on stuff. And I love it. Like he has a hyperfixation where he is obsessed with coffee equipment and espresso machines right now. And so it means I get a latte in the morning. But also, like, I can see, like, whenever he's stressed, he will sort of start to buy things that relate to his current hyperfixation and sort of impulse buy stuff as well.
Okay. So that's the one that bothers you the most, then, probably.
Yeah, well, that and the interrupting.
And then the interrupting. Okay.
Yeah, but but I also like I see his passion for it, and so I will always like support him in that in the same way that he supports me and my hyperfixations as well. And I think that that's the beauty of a relationship where both the partners are autistic. But yeah, and then that kind of goes into the next question a bit about like what is one of the things you like about it the most. I think in our relationship specifically, looking at our varied support needs and how we still complement one another in those support needs. We're very loyal to each other. I know his mom, like when his parents came a couple months ago, they were saying, like, you guys are like the strongest, like, power couple that we know. Like,
so cool.
You guys can do anything, like, no matter where you go. So I really think that is really amazing that we have been able to make it this far, like almost 5 years.
Wow.
Wow.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
How nice of his parents to say that. That's very nice.
Yeah. And they're very supportive. Like, even though like sometimes I'm like, why did you say that to me? And like sometimes, of course, they're parents. And so they want their son to have the best that he can have. And he's in a different country away from them. But they have been nothing but supportive to us in whatever we decide to do. And even though they may have their opinions, they still understand, like, oh, it's our relationship. And we kind of have to figure out things out on our own, but they're always supportive of us regardless.
I love that. Catherine, what about you?
So, and Eric's going to know I'm going to say this. So he is fully willing to clean. Okay. But I have to be doing it with him. So we got to be doing it together. And
James is shaking his head. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, we got to be doing it together. Like he's like, yeah, we need to clean the house, and it's we. And I'm like, you could start without me. You get home before me. And he's like, no, I was waiting on you. And I'm like, you're waiting on me.
Yeah.
Thank you. But it really is like he's fully willing to clean. He knows how to do it all, but he wants to wait for me to initiate.
That's your least favorite aspect, that he wants for you to clean.
Yes,
I don't blame you.
Yes,
Okay.
he wants me to like initiate it. Like he will do it with me. He just wants me to start it. And I kind of have to like assign him tasks as we're cleaning. I'm like, all right, you vacuum. All right, got it. Okay. He's done with the vacuuming. He somehow ended back up on the couch and is watching TV. All right, no, you go do this one now because we're cleaning. Remember, we're doing this together. You made me wait. You waited for me.
Great.
But it is one of those like him starting things without me can sometimes be just a bit frustrating for me. And I'll be like, well, why couldn't you? You've been home for because sometimes I work late sometimes too, and I'll be like, I'll have a crisis with a kid. I didn't come home until 4 a.m. one night, and it's not, Viola is perfectly well. That's our daughter. She's perfectly well taken care of. She's like, I never have to worry about that aspect. The house and the condition I come to it in is different, but like she is like this perfect. She's had a bath, she's fed, she's clean, she's in bed. If I'm getting home late or whatever, like that's never a worry. But like coming home to like a lot of dishes or something like that, like, okay.
I don't blame you.
But yeah, so I think that's one for mine. The one that I really really love about our relationship and how it's part of his and it's funny because at first it started out as kind of a issue, but I think it's turned into something I love. So it's where he doesn't get my cues. So like how I was saying about the wanting him to initiate our first kiss, like, and things like that. At first it was like, okay, how do I navigate this? Because I can't pout. I can't just pout.
Oh, right.
He doesn't know if I'm
he
pouting.
won't get it.
Yeah, and I'm like pouting, and I'm like, I want him to come, like apologize, and I can't pout. He's not going to come apologize. He doesn't know he made me mad, or whatever it is. So from going from that to now, we are so open with each other, like, and are constantly doing check-ins with each other. He'll look over at me and say, "Are you good?" And I'm like, yeah. And then I'll ask him occasionally, "You good?" And we just constantly catch ourselves doing check-ins now.
I love that.
That's nice.
Just all the time. Like, we'll just look at each other. You good? And then just occasionally, and it's not even occasionally, it's all the time. He's always telling me that he loves me all the time. And like, just, it was almost like reminding me of it. And like, I do the same with him, because sometimes, he'll get into his head about, like, why am I this way kind of thing. And I'll just always just kind of tell him, randomly, I love you. And, just random stuff. But we really do those check-ins all the time with each other. And it's one of my favorite things, because we don't ever really fight because we've checked in already, and we don't let it get to the point to where we're both angry, really, really angry. It's like, maybe I'm frustrated, but I'm not angry.
Yeah. You've got a good routine going.
Yeah.
It sounds like you all do, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. That's probably my favorite part. And at first it started out like, oh, he doesn't get my cues, but now it's like, I'm more used to verbalizing everything now and just saying like whatever I'm feeling. So,
Yeah.
and he does the same with me.
oh, that's great.
That sort of reminds me of the old joke of they're in, I don't know, a social worker or whatever. Do you ever tell your wife, when's the last time you told your wife you loved her? June 5th, 1940. And it's, what? That was the day I married her. And I told her if things ever changed, I'd let her know.
Oh my goodness. Well, and I can guarantee you he's texted me during this and he loved me during this. I can guarantee it. Like
that's
when I
sweet.
look, he has texted me.
So wrapping it up, Dawn, Tara, Kara, do you guys have anything final to say before we
I do.
short and sweet?
Okay. So, Kelsey, I dream of the day that she finds somebody like one of you guys.
I know. I was going to say the same
I
thing.
know.
Love her
Zion.
and support her and accept her.
Yeah.
I dream for that day. I want so bad for her to find somebody that she can be herself with.
I know.
And so thank you guys.
Yeah, Danielle, you too. Kudos
Yeah.
to you.
And who's their safe spot? Because I think it's
and
just
Catherine and
And I think we need to give a shout
Claire.
out to,
James.
those kids on the more profound end. Those who are diagnosed, very early in life, and it's pretty obvious. And, that opportunity may not ever come their way. And it's been a great conversation. And I, too, I can't imagine my 27-year-old son who doesn't want to carry on. He's verbal and he can hold a job, but to carry on a conversation, your partner, I don't know.
till he meets the right
it has
one.
to be
Till
the
it
right
meets the
person.
right
though.
one.
Yeah.
Who's skilled in nonverbal
Yeah.
communication.
Maybe a speech path.
Yeah. I just feel like, meeting you guys, and it just gives me so much hope because Zion is just a lovely person. And I just see that there's somebody out there that will see all of the benefits and all the love that he can give, because he does it in friendships. He does it in our family, and he's just an amazing person. You can email me and I'll get Zion's stitches. And let me tell you, it is a little bit hard for him because, like you guys met on the Toontown thing, that's awesome. But because we live in such a small area, sometimes it's hard to get those relationships built. So yeah.
I don't recommend the app that we met on, because most of them are stinkers on there.
Yeah. And
We
he's
met on
tried
Tinder,
that.
so,
Yeah.
like,
And he's
it
tried Tinder.
I was seconds away from deleting it before I got it, actually.
Oh, that's so neat.
I would say, just speaking back to that, encouraging family members who are on the spectrum to engage with communities that match their interests and find other people that are interested in their similar interests. And who knows, maybe they'll find the person for them. And if not, they'll find a lifelong friend.
Absolutely. I love how you put
I like
that.
that.
I do too. That was a
Yeah.
great way to end. I'm personally honored to meet all of you,
Yes.
Danielle, Catherine, James, Claire.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for
thank you
sharing
so
so
much.
much. I'm so happy for all of you, and that I wish all of our kids can meet someone as great as you guys.
Yeah, me
So we appreciate you so much. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Tara, where can everybody?
Okay,
Listen
you
to
can
us.
listen to us on Apple and Spotify And we have 5 episodes, the last 5 episodes on our navigatingadultautism.com page. Also, we have a blog on the page, and Dawn's Autism Gossip is being published every month on our blog on Navigating Adult Autism. So all the community supports, all that are happening in Southwest Missouri, we try to put them on the Autism Gossip blog. Also, please subscribe, like, and listen. All those good things. Give us really good reviews. Yep. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you'd like to give us any advice or talk to us or set your daughter up with Zion, it's moms@navigatingadultautism.com.
Yeah. Look for our new app.
Our new singles app. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.